This is the NBA Playoff Preview with Adrian Hernandez, only on 1140 The Bet.
Oh boy, here's the thing. This is the busiest NBA playoff/NBA Finals preview we've ever done. Like the fancy voice guy said, good morning if you're tuned in on 1140 The Bet Las Vegas, or if you're on that Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, like the voice guy said, Adrian Hernandez here. It is the middle of Game 4. So if you're listening to this, you already know what happened, but we still have some of the best in the business covering these finals. So we went to the Bay Area. Sam Esfandiari from the Light Years podcast joins us to give us that Warriors perspective. And then we went back to the East Coast to Boston. John Karalis, who covers the Celtics for the Boston Sports Journal, and he has his own podcast, Locked On Celtics Podcast. They covered this team all throughout the year, one of the best to cover each team. So I need to shut up. I just need to tell you one thing. Tap in with us on Twitter at AdrianRadio93, at the Bet Las Vegas. We appreciate y'all, but we need to get straight into the interviews. It's 1140 The Bet. Enjoy. Hey, welcome to 1140 The Bet Las Vegas. Adrian here on your NBA Finals preview show. And we're going to stay in the West Coast and head to the Bay right now as we welcome to the program Sam Esfandiari of the Warriors Light Years Pod. One time for Joe Lacob. All insider calls are presented by BetQL. Get access to data and insights the sportsbooks don't want you to see. Bet smarter and beat the books. Download your BetQL app or visit BetQL.com today. First and foremost, Sam, thank you for the time. And has Disney reached out to you guys for a Light Years Pod / Lightyear movie collab?
We're still waiting. I shot a message to them, said there could be some real synergy here, but, these things take time.
No, honestly, with ABC covering the finals too and everything, it's a good collab. Where are you on the whole debate, though, about the fact that they did Toy Story 4 when, Toy Story 3 was, the perfect ending to the trilogy?
Honestly, I didn't see 3. I saw 1 and 2. I have not seen 3 yet, so I don't know if I can weigh in on this one. Maybe I need to pick that up. I have a small child now. At some point, I gotta get him into some of the classics that I grew up on. But
no, 100%.
To date, I have not.
No, 100%. Disney Plus is about to be your babysitter coming up. I promise you. And first and foremost, as we kick this off, and I told you before we started the interview, but I think I just need to make this aware, because I don't want you to be like, what? He never told me. I've been blocked by Warriors World before. Is this okay for us to be talking?
You know what? First thing I'm going to do when I get off this call is hit up the group chat and see how he feels about you. I think we're okay.
No, well, and also, I'm from Cleveland, so like I told you before, it's like I'm going into the heart of Warriors Twitter. But I do have to ask you, man, throughout this run, or even before this run, just straight up, how do you feel about Monte Ellis? How has he impacted your life?
If it wasn't for Monte, I don't know if any of this happened. Now, I'm old enough to remember when there was a Monte versus Steph debate. It's funny to me. Gonna be honest, I was on the Steph side at the time, but most of my Warrior brethren were a little more loyal to Monte. He'd been there first. He was the bigger star at the time, so it is what it is.
Yeah, and I got some allegiance to Mr. Ellis, but you were on the right side of history, and it's funny, me being from Cleveland, it was hilarious that we had this era and this rivalry because both of our teams were in the dumps for so bad. I'm sure you bought in the $7 ticket in Oracle Arena to go to a game. I did the same thing. What's been your favorite part of this run? And also, the community that you guys have built that's been amazing for you guys.
Yeah, the community has definitely been my favorite part of it. Just being able to connect with people who, let's be honest, Bay Area is big. Would I have connected with people who lived an hour and a half away in San Jose, me living up kind of towards the city? Would I have connected with them if it wasn't for the Warriors going from being a laughingstock to kind of the most relevant team in the Bay Area for the last decade? No. So that's been cool. But more than anything, it gets back to what you're saying. It's I grew up riding BART to go to Oakland A's and Golden State Warriors games, and both of those tickets cost me under $10. One of those tickets still cost me under $10. The other one, not so much.
We might be stealing your team here in Vegas. I don't feel good about it. The A's. I don't really feel good about. Honestly, I don't feel really good about the Raiders. But it is what it is. But back to the Warriors. You had to deal with the rivalry with Cleveland, and there's still some bitterness, obviously, on the Cleveland side. But in comparison to, like, who is it? So it's Cleveland. I would assume Oklahoma City fans hate you guys. And then now having to deal with Boston fans. Out of those three, like what's been the differences?
First off, Cleveland is the only rival. I take it back. Houston also should get thrown in there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Battles with the James Harden, Chris Paul Rockets, but like nothing tops peak Cleveland because you have LeBron at the peak of his powers. Everyone thought Cleveland was going to rip off 3-4 titles when LeBron went home, and no one really saw the Warriors coming, including Warrior fans. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, just because I liked Steph more than Monte, I didn't think Steph was going to reinvent the game of basketball. I didn't see that coming or anything. I just thought he was a better point guard. So nothing's ever going to touch it. Boston, to me, it's funny because Boston sports fans, they're obnoxious, like Patriots, Red Sox, like we all know that, and they're trying really hard to kind of create this rivalry. I don't know if you saw like the videos that you're seeing, like, I don't know, Barstool and stuff put out there and whatever it may be. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just kind of like, yeah, but, I don't really have bad blood with Jason Tatum. I think he's a nice young player. It's like, it's funny because they really want Warriors fans to take the bait. And I just don't think Warrior fans feel that way about them. It's never going to be like it was with Cleveland where you saw them every year for half a decade, or, even the Houston Rockets, who were like the only team in the West who really tried to come at the Warriors and had some classic series with them or anything. Boston, they're bottom of the totem pole relative.
No, 100%. And also Barstool Sports, I don't know after this interview if we're ever going to get hired at the Ringer. I'm okay with that. I don't know about you. And in this series, or actually, hold on, because I know I'm all over the place and I apologize. I kind of want to get your take on how exhausting, or is it exhausting, having to have these conversations and kind of defend Steph Curry. Like, for example, the Steph Curry legacy talk, or even what's been evident to me in this series. And new report came out, he should be able to play for Game 4 here on Friday night. But just like, he's averaged over 30 points this series. Like, he's been dominating offensively. He's been the main fixture.
Not the problem.
Yeah, and but he's not the vocal point. Like, it's Draymond, or it's always something else, or he doesn't have any Finals MVPs. Like, and I know it's exhausting because I've spent my whole life arguing about LeBron being better than Jordan. So, from your perspective as a Warriors fan, like, how exhausting is it having to defend or talk about Steph and like making sure his respect and his credit is given?
I think you will relate to this when you're dealing with a new opponent. You kind of assume they know what they're talking about, and then they remind you that they didn't watch anything the last decade. Like, you have like Cedric Maxwell saying the Warriors, they're tuxedo players. They don't like physicality. And like you see various people, national voices being like, well, Steph hasn't really played in big games. And I'm just sitting here going, like, did you not watch basketball the last decade? It's like when people would say, I guess with LeBron, where it's like, well, he's not clutch. And it's like 2018, you're sitting here at a certain point, you're like, I don't know where to even begin with this. Like, have you watched basketball the last decade? So it is definitely exhausting because I kind of thought at a certain point people would just reach a, like, I don't like him, but at least I, tip my cap what he does type of thing. And like, the finals here are a reminder. It's like, oh, you guys like really tuned out everything that happened when your team wasn't playing.
No, 100%. Like, because they'll love to throw the 17 championships at your face. Although it was the one in 2000, whatever, and then before that, like, it's been a minute for them. When we're talking about Boston specifically, and since we're kind of talking about some of the off-court things surrounding these finals and some of the antics when you bring up Cedric Maxwell. Yo, Draymond Green. Some of this stuff at a certain point seems a tad unnecessary, but then on the flip side, and I guess we're biased because what do? We make podcasts, we talk about the game, we get paid to talk about the game, we make content, and it's a certain point of like, do you want Draymond Green and NBA players to give you the content and the insight? Like, do you want that or do you don't? With all this and people like complaining about he's not focusing on the game and he's doing a podcast, how dare he? Like, where do you stand on that whole storyline?
I'm just, I think you'll appreciate this, but it's like, I guess fans who are like, Draymond objectively was terrible in game 3, and then first thing you see afterwards is like him smiling on YouTube. It's like, God damn it, that sort of thing, like where you're just kind of like, I don't want to deal with this right now, but it's like, dude, you do realize like players do stuff after the game, right? Like
they have lives.
Would you prefer he, like fly cross country and do WCW like Dennis Rodman did? Like ultimately, he talked on a Zoom call for 30 minutes. Like, what are we really getting mad about here for? So I reject the premise that, like, he's unfocused doing that because it's like all these players, after the game, they're going to go to dinner with their families. They might go out. They're going to do something just to unwind, right? So it's just like the only difference is he's giving you something that you can watch on YouTube now.
No, 100%. And it's like, yo, before we had to like read a newspaper or watch SportsCenter to get one quote. And now you get an actual NBA player giving you how he feels. And in terms of this series and going into the specifics of this, I just want to know now with the Steph injury, like I said before, he should be okay. And Boston taking the 2-1 lead. Where are you at right now?
On the series, a lot of it depends on how healthy Steph is. We saw the play where Horford came up on him. Shams reported they're optimistic he's going to play game 4. It's the finals. Unless he's in a cast, he's going to play. But that doesn't mean he's not going to be limited. So I kind of want to see how he is. If that Horford fall never happened, I'd tell you, you know what? It's kind of going how I expected. I think they're kind of evenly matched. I kind of like the Warriors' chances to win game 4. And, maybe it even goes 7. It's going to be one of those back-and-forth type of matchups. But I'd be lying to you if, watching kind of that little, clearly he fell hard on his leg. And it's one of those things where until I see Steph moving and I see him moving like Steph, I'm going to be a little nervous.
Where did you fall on the side real quick of like letting him play out those? I know it was only like 1 or 2 minutes, and then Steve Kerr finally called the timeout and said, "No, let's get the starters out of there." But do you think Steve should have took him out like right after that incident?
Honestly, I like that he let him play after it because it kind of like it did calm me down a little bit. It did make us feel like, okay, the last thing you want to see is like him limping to the back room, right? Because then you're like, uh-oh, So for him to play through it, it gives you some confidence that he'll be okay and that he is okay. And all the reports suggest he's okay. But, I just want to see how it looks because we've all banged something and it felt fine. And then the next day you're like limping around a little bit.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where there's nothing that's going to change the way I feel until the game starts and, it looks normal.
One thing I do want to ask you in terms of offensively, because it was just a weird – there was certain points where I saw Golden State kind of be like Boston where there were certain matchups where I know Boston went to they had Rob Williams out there, they had Al Horford out there, and in game 1, Steph went off because of that, and they kind of didn't attack any of those bigs. But a big portion of – offense that wasn't there for me has kind of been Jordan Poole, which even in some of the games against Dallas has kind of fallen off. What's your just overall view of Jordan Poole? And like, he needs to step up, correct? Like he needs to create this offense and help Steph out, right?
Literally was just talking about that. That's like my number one thing I want to see in game 4. Right now, like, look, we know, we've all seen like the numbers, how the Warriors are much better when Steph's on the court than when he's off the court. Shocking. You're better when your best player plays, right?
Yeah.
But the drop-off they've had this series in the no Steph minutes where Jordan Poole has to run the show has been awful. And, Poole's been pretty damn good all playoffs. Like, there's no other way around it. He looks like a rising star. He looks like a player who the Warriors could potentially build around, like, in the future, post-Steph years. And he's exciting. He's fun to watch. He's explosive. He's been bad in this series, and I don't know if they can beat Boston if he continues to stay bad. He doesn't need to put up like 30 like he was doing in some of the other ones, but he needs to give them something offensively because Boston's too good defensively for it just to be the one-man Steph show.
Yeah, no, 100% here on the NBA playoff preview, 1140 The Bet, Las Vegas. And one other question, too, before we get you out of here, and thank you so much for the time. Kevon Looney, like I just brought up, Boston went back to having Al Horford and Rob Williams to end the game and in big moments of Game 3. And not only has Kevon Looney been balling his ass off, but even in the paint, which Game 1 and 2, Boston wasn't getting those looks. Game 3, they attacked. They were in the paint. The scoring margin, I think it was like 52 to 36 or 26. It was a huge discrepancy. And I look at the box score. Kevon Looney only played 16 minutes and 49 seconds. Do you think it was just circumstantial of Steve Kerr going, yeah, let's go small. Let's ride this out small and see if we can pull this out? Or do you expect him to play a little bit more as the series progresses?
I think both of those are true. I think it was circumstantial. I think they were trying to they ignited the run going small. Like, Boston was up 15, Warriors went small, they tied the game up. So it was working. And Looney's always kind of one of those guys where some games it's 30 minutes, some games it's 10 minutes. It's kind of like really matchup dependent. But yeah, I mean, he's been really good for them all playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if Game 4, for example, they went the opposite way and they're like, yeah, Looney, we need you in there and we need you to like gobble up 15 rebounds because that's just the way it goes.
Two-part question to get you out of here. Number one,
okay,
who do you think is gonna win this series now that it's 2-1 Boston? And number two, more importantly, in terms of just being ignorant and the arrogance, like how big would winning this championship without KD and now giving the rest of the NBA no ammo to go at your fan base, how big would that be?
One, I'm sticking with my Warriors in 7. That was my pre-series pick. I'm not going to pivot off of it until you tell me Steph's not playing. And two, you're going to want to block me if that happens, to be honest. Not only winning one without KD, but doing it while the Brooklyn Nets are a complete and utter mess. Boston swept them in round 1. The Warriors take care of Boston and kind of just put that narrative to bed that, it's KD's ring. No, KD needed the Warriors more than the Warriors needed KD, is the way it's looking right now. And yeah,
Bars?
If you find Warriors fans insufferable now, you do not want to see what happens if they win this series.
Oh, boy. I'm not looking forward to your friend Andy's tweets. Speaking of your friend Andy, before we get you out of here, if you could just let everybody know where they can reach you on social media. Again, the Warriors Light Years podcast, where they can get that. Shout out whoever before we get you out of here.
Yeah, you can find you can find the Light Years Pod on anywhere you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Andy and I are doing a post show every game of this series. Obviously, there's only 4 left at most, on Spotify Live as well. You can hop on the app there and listen to us in live time, ask us questions, sort of like talk radio style. But yeah, subscribe. Light Years Podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen.
All right, we're doing the virtual handshake. Cleveland Cavaliers and Warriors Twitter coming together for 20 minutes, and we didn't end up yelling at each other. Yo, Sam, thank you so much.
I think we got to thank Boston for bringing us together. We can both acknowledge, we can unite in beating a common enemy here.
Not only that, but Barstool Sports. We'll leave it at that. That's how we'll end the interview. It's 11:40 The Bet. We'll be right back. Hey, it's 11:40 The Bet Las Vegas. Adrian Hernandez here with your NBA Finals preview, and we're in the Bay Area, and now let's take a red-eye flight to Boston to get the Celtics perspective. John Karalis joins us. He covers the Celtics for the Boston Sports Journal and the Locked On Celtics podcast. All insider calls are presented by BetQL. Get access to data and insight the sportsbooks don't want you to see. Bet smarter and beat the books. Download the BetQL app or visit BetQL.com today. John, first and foremost, thank you for joining us here in Las Vegas. Momentum is going Boston's way. How are you feeling about the series?
I mean, I do agree that the momentum is going Boston's way. I mean, it's not just that they won game two. I think that the way they're winning these games, it shows that they've got a good game plan. They've got good personnel. I feel pretty confident in the Celtics' ability to win the series.
And with you covering this team this entire year, and I think you talked about it in your latest article that this eight-month journey, that the Celtics have been on. It's interesting to me when we talk about the start of the season, comparing the Celtics and Warriors, because it was kind of polar opposite. There was some drama on the Celtics side. Meanwhile, the Warriors, they started like 18-2 or something like that. But that second half start for the Celtics and being the most dominant team in the second half, was it just the All-Star break, or like what did Coach Udoka really, point to and go to that this team bought in and made them start so hot in the second half?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. I mean, first thing that happened is they got healthy. They had some injuries earlier in the year, COVID, all that craziness. That all kind of went away. So you had a healthy team starting in January. Second thing you had was, I think, a turning point in that early January New York Knicks loss where the Celtics blew a 25-point lead and R.J. Barrett hits a three-pointer in Jason Tatum's face. And everybody kind of points to that game as the moment where the Celtics were like, okay, enough. We're done with the trying to do this our way. We're going to completely buy into what the coach is trying to do. And then the third thing is the trade deadline, where they traded Dennis Schroeder and Josh Richardson. I think those moves got a couple of ball stoppers out and brought in Derek White, who was a ball mover, a very astute, like 0.5 San Antonio ball movement kind of guy. And they brought Daniel Tice in to kind of get a little bit of depth in the front court. So all of those things together came together at the same time to help Boston turn things around.
And as we get into this NBA Finals and everything that's happened, and in terms of this series, and despite the box score in Game 2 and what happened there, I really thought, and I really think, like even throughout the entire playoffs, Jason Tatum has kind of grown up in front of our eyes, and how these teams are defending him. And last game he kind of followed Jalen's. Jalen was aggressive from the start of the game, and he was attacking. And to me, Jason was attacking with purpose. Like, instead of going to the lane trying to get a foul call, no, he was trying to get a bucket. And I think Synergy Sports also said he's created 45% of Boston's points in the finals. From your perspective, what have you seen from Jason Tatum?
Yeah, Tatum, I think, when he's at his best, that's what he's doing. North-south, kind of playing through people. He's a big guy. And I really do think that sometimes he has to kind of remind himself how big of a guy he is. He's like 6'9", 6'10", broad shoulder. I mean, this dude is like Giannis light. And so I think he needs to kind of get into that mode of constantly attacking and not gliding like he likes to do. Because when you glide and you get fouled, it's hard for the refs to see it. But if you're going north-south and you get fouled and it knocks you off your path, there's an obvious, oh yeah, that got him the foul and the free throw. So I think that is part of his progression as a driver. And then, Ime has put a big emphasis on him kind of with the playmaking. And you see the stats. The Celtics are undefeated when he has seven or more assists in the playoffs. So I think those two elements really make Jason Tatum a very, very dangerous player. Even when Golden State wants to double him, blitz him, he can get off the ball. And I think in Game 3 what you really saw is he got off the ball a little bit quicker, didn't let them get into those passing lanes, and that really helped the ball movement, and the Celtics really started to score very well.
And another dude who had a huge game, and those 3 days off really helped him, is Robert Williams. And I want to get your insight on what you saw from him last night, and also the concern of, they're resting today, but we got game 4 tomorrow, and how many minutes you think he's going to play? Because I know he played 25 game 3. That was the most he's played in the finals so far. But just talk to me about Robert Williams.
Yeah, Rob was great. I mean, you had 3 guys scoring 20-plus points and 5 or more assists in that game, and I thought Rob was the guy who stood out the most. He's so pivotal. When he's playing well, the Celtics are the best team in the NBA. Honestly, I think when he's able to do what he does best, that just changes the entire dynamic of their defense. It allows them to just be so locked down with their defense, because him roaming, you saw it. He had 4 block shots, but coming over on guys and leaving his guy roaming in that help side and coming over to block shots, it helps, because it allows the other perimeter guys to understand, hey, if you do make a mistake, he's there to bail you out. But also, you can be more aggressive on the perimeter, knowing that there's that safety net back there. So it really has a ripple effect on the defense. And then offensively, just to have that lob threat is huge, because so many times Boston's turnovers, which is really the story of this series, Boston's turnovers, when they get in too deep and they have no outlets, when you can get deep and have Rob there, and you see a guy or 2 or 3 coming at you, you can just kind of throw it up towards the rim and he's going to go get it. So Rob, when he's healthy or close to healthy, I mean, I don't even know what percentage he is, but it's enough. And so, yeah, I think you're right, though. I think there's a concern with just the 1 day off, how much he's going to be able to give in game 4. But I think he's learning how to manage that injury and play with that injury.
And I want to ask you, because obviously I'm outside perspective here. I've seen most of the games, but I haven't seen them all, and I'm not covering them like you. But I want to know if I'm on the right path. What impressed me the most, and what I think the Celtics are, at least offensively at their best, is when Marcus Smart is not only that facilitator, but I think in last game he was kind of the pressure point of the offense, of getting into the paint and driving. Because to me, when he's driving and he's able to kick out to Jalen or to Jason, and then they can go into the paint and drive, that's when you get Al Horford open, and something like game 1 can happen. Am I on the right path in thinking that and having that philosophy?
Yeah, I think you are. I think Marcus is his best as a true point guard. And so this makes things interesting for the Celtics, because when he's not playing well, he's taking some ill-advised shots. He's trying to do a little too much. The Celtics like to put the ball in Tatum's hands and Brown's hands, even Horford's hands sometimes, to start the offense, which pushes Smart off the ball. And that's where he gets into a little bit of trouble, because when he's off the ball, he has a tendency to, hey, I'm a catch-and-shoot guy. I'm going to catch, and I'm going to shoot. And if he's not doing it at the right time in the shot clock, then you get the early shots, the quick shots, the ill-advised ones. When he's the point guard, when he starts with the ball in his hands, you can see his mentality change. He doesn't want to take those quick shots. He actually wants to drive. He actually wants to facilitate and initiate the offense. So I would like to see the Celtics continue to play that a little bit more. And, obviously you have to mix it up, but the more he has the ball in his hands to start a possession, the more effective Smart is, because he's initiating and he's playing with a true point guard mentality.
And to me, we talked about it here, the aggressiveness, and just as important was the no hesitation in some of the decision-making for the team overall. And, of course, that was a response to Golden State in Game 2. So I got to ask you, what do you think is more likely? A Game 3 performance with the aggressiveness, or Game 2 without the post presence and kind of let's all chill by the three-point lane and not drive?
If I had that answer, I'd be out there in Vegas making some money.
Right.
That's the issue with the Celtics. I'd like to think that they are learning and they understand that this is a unique situation. Game 4 at home, got the home crowd behind you and a chance to go up 3-1. This is a real opportunity to seize complete control of this series. So whatever buttons Ime Udoka needs to push, he needs to push them right now, because that's what the Celtics need to do, is come out with that same level of aggression. The quick shots, if he sees it, honestly, if they come out and they start taking quick shots, three-pointers with 22 seconds on the shot clock, I'd call a timeout 30 seconds into the game and sit them down and be like, nope, that is not what we're doing here. And they need that. They need that jolt sometimes. So it's been a little tough. The Celtics have not handled – they're great with adversity. They're not great with prosperity. When things are going well, they tend to be like, we're good. We're good. When their backs are up against the wall, pick the Celtics every single time, because they don't give in. They're a very, very tough team that way. But they're the people, like when you find $20 in your pocket, what do you do with it? The Celtics find $20 in the pocket, they're spending that immediately. They don't save their money. They don't build their wealth. So that's what the Celtics need to do. They need to build on their wealth right now, because if they can, then they have basically, I would like to say, 2 shots to win the title. Game 5 in San Francisco, Game 6 at home. Those are 2 grand opportunities to win a title.
Plus, I'm right. They haven't lost back-to-back in the playoffs yet, right?
They have not only that, they haven't lost back-to-back games in months. If you throw out the Toronto game where they rested 4 starters.
That's nuts.
Yeah, they are a resilient group. They haven't lost in the playoffs 2 in a row. It's been, I don't know, February, since March, since they've lost 2 in a row. It's been a long, long time.
Those are very good problems to have. A talking point, especially during the broadcast, is the drop coverage with Al Horford and Steph Curry in these first 3 games. I'm going to be honest with you, after the first quarter of Game 1, I was very surprised that he went back to it in Game 2. And I know in the postgame he was asked about it, and it was like, hey, look, we need to show him different defensive just schemes. And I know that the Celtics this season haven't necessarily blitzed, but to you, what do you make of the decision of trying out the drop coverage against Steph?
You know, at first I was confused, and now I'm starting to come around on maybe it's brilliant, because if we think about everybody who's listening, think about Steph and his true brilliance. When he's at his best, it's not even off the dribble. It's when he gives the ball up. He runs through 3 screens. He's impossible to stay with. And then he turns and catches and shoots, and he gets these wide open opportunities. The Celtics, they're still tweaking this coverage. They still need to be further up on some of these, and I think the Celtics really want to force Steph to get into some longer 2s and not those 3s, because, stepping into open 3-pointers is really not the strategy. So they still have to tweak where the big is. But the drop coverage on Curry, I now think, is to encourage Curry to just keep going one-on-one and to not be a facilitator and to not be the guy that starts the avalanche of Warriors passing that makes them absolutely impossible to cover, because they're one of the best passing teams, best cutting teams, best off-ball movement teams. The more you keep it in Steph's hands, it sounds kind of crazy, but it's actually like a martial arts technique. You move towards the danger, and that's how you neutralize it. You move towards the danger with Steph Curry, and you say, all right, we see you. We know how dangerous you are. You do it, and you do it all by yourself. And look, he's 34. There's only so much he can do. With these teammates, I think possibly this drop coverage is something that is designed to take away a lot of what the rest of the Warriors can do and to challenge Steph to say, we don't think you can carry these guys anymore on your own with super high usage at this age.
John, you got everybody's attention. I'm going to be honest with you with that answer right there. John Karalis joining us from the Boston Sports Journal and the Locked On Celtics podcast. And you were there for Game 3. And since we are talking about Steph, your opinion, number one, was it dirty or not? You know, we got to get into the antics. And then also, like, I do think, and I know he did say earlier today that he is going to play, but this is a huge deal because Jordan Poole hasn't been playing good, and he has been the bulk of his offense. Like, to me, this is humongous if that ankle is not right.
Are you asking if Al Horford's play was dirty?
Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all. The mere suggestion that was dirty is absolutely, I think, a farce. Like Al Horford was diving for the ball. I don't think. I'll put it this way: if anybody thinks that play is dirty, you've never played a day of basketball in your life because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. That was, and then on top of it, Al Horford. You think Al Horford's doing something dirty? No. That's outrageous. No, that was, if you watch the entire play and how many bodies were on the floor diving, that's just a byproduct. When the ball is on the floor, everybody hits the deck, and as they say, the first to the ball gets wins, and that's all that was. Now it's unfortunate that Steph was underneath, and no one wants to see Steph get hurt. Like that's not how the Celtics operate. No one wants to see anybody get hurt, and you hope that he's back at full strength. If he's not, that's a real tough blow to the Warriors. But I think I couldn't say this strongly enough. Any suggestion that Al Horford's play was dirty is an utter joke.
And speaking of Al Horford, were you surprised that the Celtics went back to the two big lineup? And then we talked about Rob Williams. He played huge. He also played healthy, which meant out in the perimeter. Unlike Game 2, he wasn't toast. And also in those situations where Al and Rob were in, were you surprised Golden State? Like they didn't really try to attack that, which surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they might play Looney more. Giving up the offensive rebounds, the 15 offensive rebounds was a big deal there. I'm not surprised. Like, Ime is going to go with whatever works. So if he sees that Derek White is having a bad game, then Derek White plays fewer minutes than he's used to playing. If he's playing a great game, then he'll play 35 minutes. And that's just what Ime is going to do. And especially in the finals is no time for formulas. The finals is what's working. Is somebody having a bad game? Boom, sit down or minimize them or somehow. You gotta. I mean, minus your superstar players, you gotta let them play through it. But going back to the double big when Rob is healthy, that's how the Celtics have had the best defense in the league and been one of the most dominant teams in the league. Golden State, I'm very curious to see what their response is going to be and how that little chess match goes. But if Rob is anywhere near healthy, he's going to be on the floor.
And John, we appreciate your time. Just a couple more questions. Strong stuff. We appreciate the insight. I'm gonna have to ask you this because I'd get yelled at by my boss if I don't. The whole Draymond Green, whether it's on the court, on the podcast, and even Klay Thompson now for his second finals to be whining and complaining over again. By the way, I'm from Cleveland, so I enjoy saying all of what I just said. What do you make of it? And even like last night with Draymond Green in the press conference where he made fun of that poor guy who was just asking about the X's and O's. Like, to me, it's not the point of I don't think he's giving out the strategy of the game, but at the same time, if you have content out there, we don't need bulletin board material. This whole fiasco and kind of how Draymond Green has overtaken, Steph Curry's averaging over 30 points and has been playing amazing. He's an afterthought. It just, the whole situation blows my mind.
Yeah, Draymond is, he's always been a unique character, right? But now with his podcast, he keeps plugging the podcast, and look, as a podcast host, I appreciate the hustle. But at the same time, you are in the NBA Finals. And I think one thing that these athletes are learning is that when you just go out there and say, hey, I'm going to take control of my platform, so to speak, you really run the risk of digging a hole for yourself, and it's hard to climb out of those holes, because I know how tough it is to keep talking for half an hour by yourself, or however long Draymond talks by himself. And Draymond is unfiltered and isn't like, his mindset isn't, hey, I'm going to be professional broadcaster. He's talking smack on a podcast, and he's talking smack out everywhere. It's hard to balance that and talk as much as he does with the attitude behind it, without saying stuff that kind of, gets you into a little bit of trouble, either by offending somebody or by triggering the opponent and riling up a crowd. And you kind of, I don't know, you don't want to rile up a crowd in the finals like that. The more you piss off Celtics fans, the louder they're going to be, and that place is going to be extraordinarily loud. And if they want to complain about the language that was used, I mean, I get it, but those players using the same language on the floor, don't come at me and tell me, oh, the kids, won't somebody think of the children? Like, what are you talking about? You guys use the exact same language on the court in front of children. I mean, Draymond swore in front of his own son on the podium. Like, spare me this sanctimonious stuff. Like, come on. That's just, you know what that was? It's they're upset that they lost, and they understand that they are in a tough spot. They're frustrated with themselves, and they project out and they put it on somebody else. They're more frustrated about themselves than anything.
And on the flip side, I guess this will be my last question, and I know you were at practice earlier today and got some quotes, but to me, another thing that is huge is that they survived the Steph being Steph and, Clay actually showing up. So, and the barrage that they had in Game 3, in your estimation right now with the Celtics, how confident are they after surviving that?
Well, I mean, it's just like anything, right? Like, if you're afraid of heights and you jump out of a plane and you land and, you get that, picture with the thumbs up and the parachute and all that, then you land and you're like, oh my God, I did that. And you feel good about yourself. So there's a natural inclination to be like, oh, okay, they did it. Steph did his thing, Clay did his thing, and we survived. We were able to pull ourselves out of the tailspin. Because one of the things that's been a real killer for the Celtics is they have let things cascade and go down further. That big explosion from Steph, they turned it around at the end of the third quarter. The Warriors took a lead, but the Celtics took the lead right back. And that's a big deal. It makes you wonder if the Celtics can, in Game 4, pull out of that a little bit sooner next time and make it a more normal quarter. Steph's going to have his run, but instead of the last 4 minutes where you turn things around, maybe you turn around at the 6-minute mark and you take control of things a little bit more easily. So, I mean, I'm not in their heads. They seem like a comfortable group. They seem like a confident group, but they're always confident. They were sitting there saying we're confident when they were 18 and 21, and I was asking them, why can't you guys, finish fourth quarters? Now here they are in the finals, blowing the Warriors out in the fourth quarter. And so if they do have that natural reaction of like, okay, we withstood it, now we know we can do it, let's go do it again, then maybe they'll be able to take care of that a little bit sooner. Something's going to happen. One of those things has to break, right? Either the Celtics have to be better in the third quarter or the Warriors are going to figure out a fourth quarter. But one of those things is going to change, and that team's going to win.
An underrated factor, too, with either of these teams, if you make a mistake on either side, in real time, the other team is going to take advantage of it. But, John, we appreciate everything, all the insight. Be sure to follow John, John_Karalis. He covers the Celtics for the Boston Sports Journal. Go check out and subscribe to the Locked On Celtics podcast. John, thank you so much for the time. Strong stuff, my man.
You got it. Thank you very much.
Bada bing, bada boom, and just like that, my favorite hour of the week has come to a close. Special thanks to John Karalis, who just joined us on behalf of Locked On Celtics. Special thanks to Sam Esfandiari from the Light Years podcast. And I hope you guys enjoy the weekend without no basketball after Game 4. Yes, we're going to have to wait till Monday night, but that's okay, all right? Be sure to hit us up on Twitter at AdrianRadio93, at the Bet Las Vegas. And it's kind of sad, man, as this comes to a close that, we only, unfortunately, mark it down for next Saturday. We only got one more episode left of your NBA Finals preview. And to be honest, I don't know, but the series might even be over before then. But still, we'll wrap up the season or we'll be talking about a Game 7. Either way, we'll be here for you. Once again, hit us up at AdrianRadio93 on Twitter, at the Bet Las Vegas. I will talk to you guys Monday afternoon with Lindsey Brown on the Playmakers. Enjoy this weekend, and most importantly, stay safe, stay hydrated, and enjoy the weekend. Peace.
Back to